Now we're going on the last and final video. This one is a recommendation. It says None Junji to Ito Horror Manga. Not really sure what that means. If I even said that right, I'm sorry. So this is from the Mass Man, and this is a horror anime or manga. So we get to hear what this is. This is a review, I believe. So
Horror manga, there's one name above all others you will hear over and over again.
Raiga
Junji
Samurai.
Ito. In fact, I did a
Let's
video
go.
not too long ago going over every work of his I could get my hands on. Seriously, this man and LeBron have to have the same marketing team. But what if you read all the Junji Ito stories and you're still looking for more? Some of these I have covered at length individually in separate videos, so when the name of that series pops up on screen, it will be in red text, while the others that I haven't covered individually will be in white. The first series I want to talk about is For the Apocalypse. Sitting at 46 chapters, For the Apocalypse is a zombie horror manga. It starts off with the main character who's a little bit of a wuss being accused of murder and thrown in this detention center as he claims he never did so. While in this detention center, he meets with the other group of guys that will eventually be the main core throughout the rest of the story, and with that we can now begin, as then a virus outbreak happens in the outside world, and they now have to survive being within this detention center. Now this one is probably the most action heavy of all of the horror series that I'm going to be talking about in this video, so it's really more so again about the action and the artwork, which is really good, and the characters, some of them were enjoyable, but none of them were too memorable for me to really care about or be super emotionally invested.
I'm not gonna lie, this is not really about what's going on here. I don't think I did a good job on this latex study. I think I have to. I don't think it's the drawing. I think it's just it just doesn't look good.
In, as well as once you've read sort of one zombie story, you kind of get the gist of it for every single one you read afterwards. So if you're looking for a thrilling, action-packed story with a good amount of body horror, then you might like this one. Okay, now this one's an absolute treat. Sitting at 9 chapters from one of my favorite mangaka of all time, Hideout. I think out of all the series that I'm going to recommend in this video, this is the one with the best artwork in my opinion, and I think it's a really well done story where it does a good job of combining these unrealistic horrors with the horrors of everyday life, especially for a working man. It was extremely impressive to me how it was able to make me really familiar with the main character, Seiichi Kirishima, and every twist that ended up happening throughout this story upon first read-through, I promise you won't entirely see it coming. Again, I can't get into it too much more because then I'd really be spoiling some things and I don't want to do that, so please check this one out for yourself. It's only 9 chapters. Recognize this one, but PTSD Radio, sitting at 6 volumes. This is a very interesting series where essentially there's all these different stories that don't seem connected, but yet sometimes they do, and it can be really hard to keep track. And the reason why is because with each chapter comes a radio frequency, like if you were tuning in and out of a station. So really pay attention to the numbers that appear at the beginning of a chapter, because that will help you keep track of which story goes with which. And as you read more and more and more, you get the revelation that this is a town that has been cursed by the mistakes of the past. There's actually these short stories at the end of the volumes, specifically volumes 5 and 6, where the author tells the story of what's been going on as he started writing this series, and how he had to stop writing the series out of fear of what would happen to him. Now this was most likely just a marketing stunt, and if it was, I'd like to shake his hand personally, because it definitely made for a great video title. I really do love the artwork and the style in which he implements it, and if you want to see more of it, you can in the next work we're going to be talking about, Fuan no Tane Plus, or just known as Seeds of Anxiety Plus. Seeds of Anxiety sits at 16 chapters, while Seeds of Anxiety Plus sits at 119 chapters. This one doesn't really have a cohesive narrative to it like PTSD Radio does, which is a little bit of a shame. This one's just a mixed bag of all of these different short horror stories, with a lot of it being really hit or miss in my opinion. I would still recommend this one because I still think that there are at least a few that you might pick out of this hat, read, and really enjoy, and it sticks with you. One of them for me actually was this lady who kept on having this dream of her dying, falling off of a building, and she was really excited to go to a job application, you know, because she just got accepted. It was her first day at the job, so she goes and walks and sees that that's the building that she had been dying from the entire time. There was also another title called Death God, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it was one of the few times I was manga jump scared. So yeah, again, it's a very mixed bag, these short horror stories with all sorts of different things, and I think the title for the series is extremely appropriate, as it's not these grandiose, grotesque, and horrifying things you're really seeing. It's just these little seeds of anxiety, little fears, of what might happen. Now, this next series, in my opinion, is very special. In fact, I would argue special might even be underselling it, as I genuinely think you will not find a better manga under 50 chapters than this one. In fact, it's only 12 chapters, and it's Bibliomania. The story is about this girl called Alice trying to make it to door 000, where then she'll be free and set into the real world, and her opposition being the serpent. Now, I think this story has one of the best twists I've ever read, as I really didn't see it coming, and along the way as Alice continues through these doors, I think it really had a beautiful message of the beauty of what is real life, as you see all of these different characters and their insecurities and the pains they suffered in their real life, just really driven home with exaggeration, but yet beautiful representation through art. And I think it was a very powerful message that you get while reading this story, as Alice says multiple times, that it isn't real happiness, that the real happiness can't really be there without the pains of life. So even though the happiness in life might be a lot less, at least it's real. And so I thought that was a really interesting thing. And as for the horror elements, again, it's some of the visual stuff you see as this story continues. But the real thing that drove home the story even more was the twist that was being set up from the very beginning. It does have a little bit of a Lovecraftian lore dump, as some horror stories tend to do, to sort of explain the entire concepts and lore that you've been thrown into. And it really takes some time to really sit and digest sort of what you read, but once I took time to do that, I legitimately think this is one of my favorite manga ever, as I do think it's important to appreciate stories that, yes, they take time to do things over a long period of time, but I also have massive respects for authors who are capable of communicating a message through a story very quickly. I think both have their pros and cons. I was actually wanting to do a dedicated video on this series, but when I was looking for the imagery for the thumbnail, I saw a thumbnail pop up in the image search, and it was hiding the public, who actually had a very similar title to what I was thinking at the time, but he's already done it like a year ago, and it's a great video, so I would just highly recommend that you check it out. Link will be in the description below. Before we continue on with the video really quick, I just want to thank you all so much for the support you've given me throughout the years, especially the people who've supported the Patreon. And in fact, there's a new tier there where joining that tier, you'll have your name put at the end of every video, the end screen, the whole animated thing that I got done recently, as well as you'll get access to the server where we've been watching Steins Gate, and then we plan on watching different series after that. So once again, thank you all so much for your support. Now, some of the series in this video do this weird thing where it attracts you by making you feel repulsed by the imagery. I think this one is more so my favorite type of horror, one that delves into a far more psychological element, and it creeps you out to the core. And it doesn't just scare you for a moment, but it leaves you deeply disturbed for who knows how long after reading it. Blood on the Tracks, at 142 chapters, currently ongoing, is a series about a poor boy and a psychotic mother. It's a really disturbing series, as I spoke about this in my video near 2 years ago, but the fact that the relationship between a son and his mother is one of the most important in his life. To have a character where that relationship is so detrimental, as well as our main character who doesn't really know how to stand up for himself properly, it really creates for an unsettling experience from the moment you pick it up. I think it's a testament to this story that it's arguably the most terrifying to the core, and it's not some strange extraterrestrial being, it's not some spiritual entity, but if not, it's just the boy and the boy's mother, and the absolute terror that comes with the idea of what she could possibly do at every turn. I've seen some people express that they feel like the series has been dragged out. I myself cannot give an opinion on that since I am catching up. Regardless, for the experience that this read is, though, I would highly recommend it. For this next...
Actually, how do I sign that?
Oh my god. Why does this keep happening?
Next manga, it's a little bit ironic because
I keep end up painting on the fucking... Oh my god! This is pissing me off now. I'm getting annoyed now. You know what? This is how I'm gonna solve this problem. Can't draw on it. So there.
As I read it, I sat there and I was like, wow, this would make for an amazing video game. And it turns out that it's actually an adaptation for an old video game known as Baroque, where essentially our main character is at the end of the world, the apocalypse, and there was this huge event that destroyed humanity and corrupted the human soul, and now he has to go.
I just realized I was drawing on the wrong layer, but it is the pen. The pen is pissing me off, but I have to wait 10 more days till my new stylus comes.
Resolve it. But yet he sort of resets over and over and over again, which again was the reason I felt like this would make for a really good video game. I felt like the story overall, the more that I delved into it, the more that I dug into the history and the meaning of not only the manga, which is the adaptation, but the source material, the game, I found a story that I really loved and enjoyed. I felt like the imagery and just the overall setting and the theme of the story was really well done, and I liked the style of it as well. I think this is one of those manga that I'm just going to throw out there because it's really, I feel like you get from it as much as you're willing to dig into it. Again, a bit of a hit or miss considering that it being an adaptation doesn't really give you the full experience as the source material would, as well as the confusing part is there all the time, but especially at the beginning, so that might be a turn off for some readers. But again, it's only 17 chapters, so it doesn't hurt to check out. Sitting at 42 chapters, The Drifting Classroom is a really interesting experience, as I think it's a lot of environmental horror, as this kid, who's our main character Sho, goes to school, but then his school ends up being kind of abducted and taken out of the real world, which then they find out they're in the future, quote unquote. I think this was a really interesting story, given that the main character is in 5th grade, a lot of his physical abilities are limited, therefore any sort of threat that appears is felt greater because they can't really fight back. As the school goes into madness, and now these kids have to act like adults, while the adults of the facility are going mad, and some of them even murderous. I think the environmental horror in this one is really what stands out with its imagery, and again, depicting how human nature is really capable of doing anything when it comes to surviving. This is something that's usually tackled in zombie stories, and even though I covered Fort of the Apocalypse earlier, that isn't really too much of something in there, although it is prevalent. But in this story specifically, I felt like it did a really great job of doing that, as well as making me invested in the main character. I think the highest form of praise I could give this story is once I picked it up, it was extremely difficult to put back down. Now, I was thinking of including the Usamaru Furuya interpretation of No Longer Human, however, in comparison to the Junji Ito one, this one isn't really horror, it's more so tragedy and psychological, so I won't really count it, but if you're interested, it's 12 chapters, I'll just throw it out there. Now, if I had to pick a story that by far had the most grotesque imagery out of everything on this list, it would be this one, Starving Anonymous, sitting at 62 chapters. This is done by the same person who created Fort of the Apocalypse, so the art style, if it seems similar, then that's why. But with this story, how in the world am I supposed to explain this one? I'm sorry, I'm experiencing a little bit of turbulence. Okay, so it starts off with our main character and his best pal, being taken down to this underground facility where people are being fattened up and fed to this giant larva. However, this is connected to this larger scheme where the government of the world has given into the demands of what turns out to be these extraterrestrial creatures that it's essentially like, listen, we'll give you all the deal. We'll feed you all you want and you don't wreak havoc on humanity and kill us all. And this story is crazy. It's literally like traversing through a house of horrors. Although if there's one critique I would give the story is the main character largely feels very uninteresting compared to the other characters that he meets throughout the story, especially the two primary ones that is just a part of the main group. But yet in the end, he sort of has its moment. I think the artwork in this story was top-notch. The body horror made me cringe, and it was extremely hard to look at, but I just couldn't put it down, and that's really all I could ask for. It does have a little bit of a Lovecraftian lore dump at the end of the story to sort of explain how it all works, and there are moments where it's like, okay, yes, this was planned, but the way we got here was extremely convenient at times. At least that's how I felt. Nonetheless, I couldn't recommend this one enough if you're into horror, if you're into weird imagery, and just weird stuff in general, because some of the characters in this are extremely weird, although disclaimer, a very mature story, so it's not for all audiences. Now, this last story is one that I've really been looking forward to the entire video. Long ago, a tale of eldritch horrors was written down by this author, and throughout the story, he presents us with a main character who's given 4 options, but all 4 of these options lead to his inevitable destruction. But even worse than that, it's this cycle that constantly repeats. In fact, the horrors of this story were so great that the author got stuck writing it over and over and over again, so sometimes the story feels like it just loops. And on top of that, it's even affected the author's mind to where he blurs the lines between fiction and reality. Truly a terrifying tale, and anybody that I know who's genuinely read and enjoyed this series has had their mental health put into question. Rent a Girlfriend.
Oh, the video's over. Holy shit, that was weird. I think that he used the copyright song, so he muted it. Alright, with that said, like, subscribe, share, follow, comment. I hope I see you guys in the next one. Thank you for guys coming in. I do appreciate every last one of you. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Alright, thank you guys. We're done for today. Sadly, I didn't get this done, but we did a review, so... And it's right 8, so I'm gonna let you guys go early. I'm gonna try to figure this out. Maybe get the post this. If not, then I don't. I have something else in the background just in case I didn't have nothing for today to post for tomorrow. So have a great night, guys. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Take care, guys. Keep practicing and all that great stuff. And I'm out. And also follow, subscribe, follow, and comment and all that great stuff. And this was the Masked Man and the non-Junji
Raiga
Ito
Samurai.
horror. Can't say his name.
Good
right.
luck with the latex teach.
Thank you, Bri. I appreciate. I say Bri. Thank you, Bri. I appreciate it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much. I'm out.